Welcome to another 3-Minute Therapy podcast. Kevin, Chris, and I are here every week, pretty much, doing a podcast related to REBT. REBT is Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy, which is a type of psychotherapy founded by Dr. Albert Ellis in the 1950s and created a revolution in psychotherapy. REBT is based on the idea that our emotional disturbance, depression, anger, and anxiety doesn't come from situations themselves, but rather it comes from our thinking about situations. So if someone criticizes you and you feel hurt, your emotion of hurt came from your thinking about being criticized, like I need their approval, or I must not be criticized, or I can stand criticism. So it's that thinking that causes our emotional disturbance rather than the situations themselves, no matter how bad. So even in the worst situations, even if your doctor tells you you have terminal cancer and 3 months to live, and you feel depressed, it's still your thinking. The principle doesn't change no matter how bad or good the situation is. So that's a very powerful idea, because if you have disturbed emotions or emotions you don't want to have, then look at the thinking that's causing it and change your thinking. So that's REBT, Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy. This podcast is always related to something that we can get from Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy. And I'm here with Kevin Benbow, a REBT therapist in Yuma, Arizona, and Chris Rossini in the wings, who's our tech engineer. And before we go on, Kevin, did you want to say anything else about yourself?
No, I'm basically, you got it. I'm a licensed professional counselor located in Yuma, Arizona. I see people exclusively by telehealth.
Okay, very good. And I'm doing everything by phone and Zoom remotely these days. I also have a number of books. The most popular one is called 3-Minute Therapy, Change Your Thinking, Change Your Life. And you can find that on Amazon. Well, we're fortunate today to have a guest, and a special guest, and that is Majid Benis. And Majid is a student of REBT and a very conscientious and successful student. And I think, Majid, you were going to discuss some of your successes and experience with Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy. Am I correct?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. Thanks for having me again.
You're welcome. Okay, and so do you want to just give us a brief history? Tell us why you implemented REBT in your life and how it's helped.
Well, why? That's a good question. It's been now almost 11 years ago when I met you. Before I was, I was basically lost in the Freudian psychotherapy, or how do you call it? How do you call it, Dr. Alcine?
Psychoanalysis, Freudian
Yes,
psychoanalysis.
exactly. Where you sit down on a chair, on a couch, and you keep talking about your childhood, your dreams, your subconscious for years and years and years with zero results. And even when you go to a psychiatrist, he has the same idea, about the therapy. And he reinforced what the psychologist who's doing Freudian psychology, both of them, you're in a big mess in the middle with the medicine, with the drugs, and the psychotherapist. Yeah. And there is no results. You feel better in the hour, you feel better after 15 minutes, and the problem is still there. So after I discovered through you, because I had no idea what REBT was until I met you and I read the book. And I always thank God, as I'm a believer, that he made it happen. It changed my thinking. It changed my life, the way I look at problems, the way I look at life in general. And I found it very, very, very similar to my beliefs, the Islamic beliefs, the Quran, that everything's God's in charge. You can fight with destiny. He's in charge. He's the one who around the universe, not you. And acceptance, 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 whether it's on yourself, life, and others. And that's how I fell in love with REBT.
Yeah, very good. And I'm glad you mentioned psychoanalysis, because I had mentioned Albert Ellis created a revolution in psychotherapy, but Majid brings up more about what that was about. And for many, many years, Freud and Freudian-oriented therapy took hold among therapists. And the idea was that your emotional problems don't come from your thinking, but it comes from your childhood. Your dysfunctional, crazy parents who raised you, you learned it from them. But we know that that's not how emotions work. It was what you told yourself about your childhood that caused your problems, such as, I need my parents' approval, or I'm no good because my parents are criticizing me. And then in psychoanalysis, as Majid is saying, you often get a caring, compassionate therapist that helps you feel good, but it doesn't give you any ways or any methods you can use to overcome your emotional problems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the main methods we teach in REBT in looking at your thinking is looking for your demands: must, should, supposed tos, have tos, demands you put on yourself, others, or situations, such as, because I prefer to do well and get your approval, therefore I absolutely must. I have to do well, I have to get your approval, and if I fail or you criticize me, then I'm no good. So it starts with the demand, the must, and ends with the global evaluation. In this case, I'm no good.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from anxiety, that causes anxiety, depression, self-pity, and guilt. The second of the three demands is a demand on others, not on oneself. And that takes the form, because I prefer you treat me well, therefore you must, you have to, and if you don't, you're no good, and you deserve to roast in hell, and I'm going to roast you. So anger is a demand on others. And then the third of the three demands is a demand on the impersonal conditions of one's life. My life must be fair, easy, and hassle-free. If it's not, then my life is no good. I have to be miserable and escape from my miserable feelings in drugs or procrastination, or even worse, suicide.
Mm-hmm.
So we teach our clients to identify these musts and uproot them. Oh, were you going to say something?
So what I was going to mention about from my personal experience with REBT, as we were born with an imperfect brain, and whether you suffer from any disorder or not, you always get deceptive brain messages. And as an imperfect human, when you do, this is my personal experience with my OCD, I feel comfortable after months or years, let's say months, doing the exercise, 3-minute exercise, A, B, C, D, E, F. And I do it and I feel great. And I feel powerful. I feel above or stronger than my OCD. And then I let go. And then I find myself in a hole that you really, really, it is, I won't say impossible. It's possible to get out of it, but it's extremely difficult. And the cause is because I felt comfortable not doing the exercise.
Right. So when you say you let go, by that do you mean, Majid, that you do the exercises that helps you feel better and do better, and then you decide, well, I'm okay, no reason to do the exercises anymore. And then when you stop doing the exercises,
this is what I want to point
symptoms return.
Exactly, because when you feel better, you think it's permanent, which is not. You have an imperfect brain. It's like, as you mentioned in your book, you have to floss your teeth in order not to have the cavity.
On a regular basis.
on a regular basis every day if you want to feel better or keep it. I personally call it the maintenance of our EBT. I have to do,
Right.
it says maintenance. In order to keep going, you have to do again, it's not a pathological must. It's a rational must. You must do the exercise.
Yeah,
You have
that's
to.
right. It's a preferential must.
Exactly.
If you want to get better and often to stay better, preferentially, you should or must continue with the exercises. And that's true
Yes.
for most people. There are some people who actually internalize this for good after doing the exercises and questioning their musts and shoulds and contradicting them on a regular basis. But most of us imperfect humans find it difficult to maintain that
Yes.
unconditional self-acceptance, unconditional other acceptance, and unconditional life acceptance. So we keep practicing the exercises.
I like
Yes,
to
but-
encourage, oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Go
Well,
ahead.
I was just going to say, I like when I talk to people about this particular aspect of it, I like to liken it to going to the gym. We all understand the concept. If I go and I do exercises, I'll build up my body. Nobody expects that it's going to be a one and done. I'm going to go to the gym for a day, a week, a month, and that's going to make everything better for me permanently. It's a constant discipline for most of us. And I notice over time, the more I work on these things in myself, it takes a little less maintenance, but it is still important to be looking for those demands.
Yes, yes. And along those lines, I've given myself the lifetime assignment to write out a 3-minute exercise twice every day, which I do early in the morning. And that's the ABCDEF exercise, or sometimes it's called the ABCs, write out the ABCs on a regular basis. And that's why I'm so sane. I do it twice a day. So that tends to keep the musts and shoulds at bay.
And I want to mention something, Dr. Adelstein and Kevin, that with people who are suffering or have OCD disorder, it's even more because your brain believes the wrong messages. So you have to, in a good way, you have to do the exercise even more than you. You as a therapist, successful therapist who's well known, you do it twice a day, let alone somebody who suffers from OCD. He needs 5 or 6.
Yes, yeah.
Well,
And along with that, some of my clients wait until they're in the midst of a problem. They're anxious or they're depressed or they're acting addictively, and then they do it. But then it's too late. Just as Majid said, it's like brushing your teeth. You don't wait for the dentist to tell you have cavities to start brushing your teeth. You brush your teeth every day because you recognize that if you don't, the plaque and bacteria will start to build up. And if you don't, for most people, if you don't do the ABC exercises every day, the musts and shoulds will start to build up.
Mm-hmm.
I like to, if I could just bounce off that a bit, I like to tell people that we're creating a new habit. Bad habits are easy to start and hard to quit. Good habits are hard to start and easy to quit. And so I encourage people not to be too demanding on themselves. We don't want to fall into, I must do this every day, or I'm a loser, and my therapist will think I'm an absolute failure. What I encourage people to do is do their best, the best they know how, to do these on a regular basis. And then use that unhealthy negative emotion when it comes up, when you feel that anger, you feel that depression, you feel that anxiety. That is like a warning light on your dashboard. The problem isn't really the emotion. That's the emotion is simply the byproduct of the irrational thinking, any more than the warning light is a problem, is the problem. It indicates a problem. Of course, unhealthy emotions can bring about other problems, but we're looking for the root, and that's in the irrational thinking.
I agree with you.
Yeah, go on, Majid.
What I was going to say, the setbacks from personal experience will teach you, because the must is always in your brain when you say, I must do it, I have to do it in order for me to feel better. And then you have secondary disturbance. You're already not feeling good because you let yourself go and not maintain the exercise every day. And then the secondary disturbance, I must do it. But the setbacks will teach you. For example, if I miss, or I'm missing days, like, oh, Majid, oh, you're going to suffer. You're going to survive it as you survived before, but it's better not to. It's painful. Let's do the exercise. The setbacks will teach you to automatically get rid of the musts, because you don't want to be in the hole again. Nobody wants to be in the hole of the OCD.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That when you feel anxious, depressed, angry, act addictively, obsessively, use that as a red flag, as Majid is saying, to remind yourself it's time to get back to my 3-minute exercises on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
One last thing I'd like to mention that I found interesting, and that is Majid mentioned he's a follower of Islam. And through that, I came across this a website called IslamicSunrays.com. IslamicSunrays.com. And I was struck by some of the similarities between Islam and REBT.
A lot. Sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Adelstein. It's a lot of I can say as a Muslim, 95, 98%.
Yeah, yes. And to document that, I came across this website, IslamicSunrays.com, and here are some of the things that the author says on it. And it comes from Islam. If you've harmed someone, forgive yourself. Don't carry guilt and shame around in your heart like a poisoned dagger. Constant regret for the past is a waste of spirit. You are not an angel, nor am I, nor any human being on this earth. It's part of Allah's plan that you commit sins and He forgives you. Don't despise yourself. Forgive yourself. It's okay to let go of the past. Tomorrow is a new day. Wake up and do your best every day. Be peaceful and strive to be happy. So that was very, very interesting, very fascinating to me, those similarities, which Majid obviously was familiar with. Kevin, did you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's really interesting. Years ago, when I started, I set up a Facebook account for my practice, cognitive therapy of Yuma. I was really surprised that some of the first followers and people who liked it were from the Arabic-speaking world, or from that part of the world, from Egypt, from all these other places, and that really, really surprised me. One thing that dawned on me is that those of us who practice these kinds of therapies, we tend to leave people's religious beliefs alone. And sometimes we can find things that parallel what we're teaching in different scriptures. For example, I have a background in the Bible, and with my religious clients, I find it resonates with them to use certain passages and show how these basic principles have existed for a long time.
Yes. And
but the beauty of REBT, but I fell in love with REBT because the Quran has no shoulds or must. You have a choice. Yes, there is hell and heaven, but it's your choice. There is consequences, but there is no must. You must die as a Muslim, or you must go to hell, or you must go to heaven. No, it's your choice. There's a punishment, but it's your choice. There's no must.
It's your choice what you're going to do. Are you going to have another drink or not? That's your choice.
You're going to go shoot heroin or not. That's your choice.
Yeah. Yeah, Jeffrey Schlaler wrote a book called Addiction is a Choice. I've heard the expression that the drug has hijacked your brain. Well, I'm afraid it doesn't work that way. Your thinking has hijacked your brain. No drug can hijack your brain. It could make it more likely and more of an influence on acting addictively. But the bottom line is it's your choice. Sometimes it's very, very difficult to make that choice, but it's still your choice.
Yeah, it can be so difficult. It seems to us like there's no choice. That's not the reality. It seems like there's no choice, but there is a choice.
Yeah.
If we can just get through it.
It's true. Kevin, Dr. Edelstein years and years ago told me something, and I still say it to my alcoholic friends, and they find it fascinating. They're stuck. They can't answer it. He told me that, let's suppose somebody with the gun standing, pointing at the gun. I was like, if you have a drink, I'll shoot you right now. Would you drink? They can answer no.
And these are people who say, I have no choice.
Yeah. That said, I've used that on quite a few people myself for different things. And some people will stubbornly cling to that and say, yes, I would not take a drink, or I would not do this. And one thing I learned to say, okay, think about their loved one. What if someone came in and pointed the gun at your child? Would you then continue to take a drink? That one resonates with some people a little bit better. I'm hard pressed to find someone to say, yeah, go ahead and shoot my child while I take this shot.
Yeah, so in the first instance, Kevin, you were saying that they would agree that if a gun was pointed at them, they would not drink, or they were saying they still would drink?
They say they still would drink.
I haven't come across any people like that.
Oh yeah. I've had them say things, but if say things similar to that, but if I move it to their child, their spouse, whatever, suddenly it's like, okay, yeah, I could do, and it's a broad range of things. Like I could do my studies and focus if someone pointed a gun at my kid's sister. Not me, though. If you point a gun, I think that's really BS. I think if it really happened, they really would. But that's just my take on it.
I agree with you. I agree. Because I have a lot of them that I know and friends, and I ask them, they can answer because they want to be the macho man. They can't answer, but I know inside of them, anybody with the gun on your head, you're not going to have a drink. Yeah. And this is why the psychoanalysis messed up people. Because when they go to psychotherapy or a therapist who follow in the Freud therapy, which is the psychoanalysis, this is, oh, tell me about your drinking, your parents screw you up, or your childhood. That's a bunch of BS. To tell you something that I found fascinating, Dr. Edelstein, in the Muslim world, and I've seen it with my own eyes back home when I grew up, there've been alcoholics who quit completely without any help of any doctor. And I question why.
Right, that's right.
Literally, you come to the mosque, dude, you were in the street for 20 years. Oh, I stopped. And if you tell any doctor, any psychiatrist, it was you're lying. I've seen it because the way they thought about it.
Exactly.
Can I throw something out there?
One last word, Kevin, then we better wrap it up.
There's some interesting research out there that our rehabilitation programs in the United States, at least, have an abysmal record, about a 9% effectiveness rate. And truth be told, most people that quit harmful substances, not just alcohol or cigarettes, but heroin, methamphetamine, most people that do eventually quit do it on their own. And the reason is very, very simple. They get tired of the consequences. They get tired of living with it. And so they decide, you know what, enough of this. I'm not going to do this. So.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Well, I'd like to thank you again, Majid, for being.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I think that was very valuable. And thanks, Kevin. And thanks, Chris Rossini, our tech engineer. If you had any thoughts about this episode, please comment below. our YouTube. Give us a thumbs up if you liked it. Suggest subjects that you would like us to discuss, or questions or hard issues. If you'd like to volunteer and be a guest on the show, that would be wonderful. Majid survived, and you will probably as well.
Yes, you will.
And yeah, Majid is living proof. And donate to Patreon to help support us, and subscribe to 3 Minute Therapy Podcast to stay on the rational side of life.